Good morning. We're finishing up the Little White Book, the Little White Book that comes with the Tarot of Ceremonial Magic. And tomorrow we're going to start something kind of different. We're going to talk about a Crowley Class A document called Libra Ararita, and it's sort of a magical thing. It concerns the union of the client with the holy guardian angel, the unity of the five of you and the six of deity or the holy guardian angel. And it's sort of an interesting sort of thing, and it's open to a lot of discussion and such. But anyway, it's something that I regularly shared with Monday night class, and I'm going to share it with you starting tomorrow. But until then, we have to finish up the very briefest of divinatory meanings to the small cards of the tarot. And remember, this is just the little white book stuff. The in-depth comment on this deck is in my book from Weiser called Tarot of Ceremonial Magick. So we've gone through the wands, which is the yod of Yod He Vav He. We've gone through the cups, which is the first He in Yod He Vav He. And now we're getting into the ruach, or the intellect, or the suit of swords, the Vav of Yod He Vav He. So we start, let's see, with the Ace of Swords, which of course would be spirit of air. So there's the spirit black egg, and there is the air tattva symbol of the blue circle. That would be the E in X harp, the spirit square of X harp, sort of like the archangel of air in the Enochian way of looking at things. Okay. Ace of Swords, the root of the powers of air. Remember, the aces are the root, or the tendency toward the element, and not the element themselves, which actually starts with the twos. The root of the power of air, primordial intelligence, seed of the mind, invoked force. Now, Ace of Wands would be natural force, but the sword is invoked force. And that's either for good or for ill. So the sword being the magical weapon of defense, but it cuts both ways, just like the intellect cuts both ways. Okay. The Two of Swords. It's one of my favorite cards, because I'm hardly ever disappointed when it comes up in a tarot reading. It's called Peace Restored, or Peace. But you know, peace is a funny thing, especially when you're trying to describe it with weapons. Okay? The peace restored, that means there was problems, okay, to begin with. It was like it's not quite a truce. The truce will show up in the Four of Swords, but it is a cessation of conflict. Peace restored. Nice Luna in Libra. Now it's another one of my favorite cards because one of the two Goetic spirits that go with it is my good friend Orobas, who's been is a very beneficent sort of character traditionally. And here are the dates associated with it coming up like next month. Peace restored, first manifestation of air. Equilibrium, abiding above disruption. Dormant, antagonism. Depending on how these are dignified in a reading, there may be trouble brewing just below the surface. Now, all the aces and the one and the twos and the threes, they're all supernal triad, 1, 2, and 3 on the tree of life. And they're so high above everything else on the tree that they're just in their own universe. So in other words, from our limited dualistic point of view, there is no good or bad ace, 2, or 3. Okay? They're all supremely good and supremely bad, just all at the same time, because duality disappears. Okay, when we cross the abyss there ain't no two sides to a coin in that level of consciousness. So even though the Three of Swords is called sorrow, this is not your ordinary run-of-the-mill. Oh, I lost. Oh, I feel so sorry. Oh, he died. Oh. It's not that kind of sorrow, okay? It's a sorrow. It's called sorrow because that's probably the closest word we can come up with, a dualistically sounding word that even approaches what it is. When the Buddha had his trance of sorrow, that was a great awakening. I mean, it was super. It was very cool. But the only way that it could ring a bell down here below the supernal triad, the best we could say was, well, he figured out everything was sorrow as long as there's attachment and stuff. Okay. It's a good sorrow, okay? Don't be bummed out if you see this in a reading all the time, okay? Saturn in Libra. It's the 3 of Swords. Sorrow. In a reading, a practical reading, it could mean profound melancholy. Now, but that could engender either depression or wisdom. Could mean secrecy in a mundane way or perversion. 4 of Swords. Truce. Technical, Crowley calls it truce. The technical title is Rest from Strife. Jupiter in Libra. Rest from strife, truce, compromise. Tension is relaxed through submission to militaristic discipline and dogma. Remember, where all these qualities are projected against weaponry. Refuge from sorrow. 5 of Swords. Defeat. Remember, when we get off the either right or left on the tree of life, and the lower we go on the tree of life, the more difficult and unbalanced things become. Failure. Inadequate energy to maintain peace. Reason is undone by sentiment. Not all swords are bummers. The 6 of Swords earns success, Mercury in Aquarius. Crowley calls it science. Earn success. Intellectual endeavors are rewarded. Equilibrium of mental and moral faculties. The method of science. The aim of religion. Well, that was in the middle pillar, right in the middle. The sun shone on that card, but now we're way off on Off balance again on the 7. Unstable effort. Unstable effort, futility, indecisiveness, appeasement, swimming against the tide, insufficient energy, and will to complete the task. Eight of Swords. Shortened force. But look how Jupiter in Gemini, that's things could get worse than that, okay? Eight of Swords, short and forced, interference, being good-natured at the wrong time, unexpected bad luck, energy wasted on unimportant details. Now, I've gotten this card at the beginning of major projects in my life, and they have turned out to be a pain in the ass. But they've also turned out to be some of the best projects I've ever done. But it's hard to put a good spin on the 9 of Swords. Despair and cruelty. Although everything has its place. Mental anguish, nothing furthers both the acceptance of martyrdom and unrelenting revenge. Okay, when it pops up in a reading, it usually is indicating that the querent's present state of mind. Okay, so usually when it appears in a reading, it's not telling us anything that we don't already know. 10 of Swords. Now, can you imagine how paranoid the forces, the spiritual forces of the mind, or swords, thinking that it's losing its grasp on reality. The mind hates to relinquish sovereignty over self. And when it's down on number 10, all the way down to the tree of life, the world of the mind is kicking and screaming not to lose its self-identity and drip into the world of of discs, but it is ruin. Ten of Swords, madness, disaster which may signal the end of delusion. Okay, then the court cards that go with this, the Knight of Swords, Fire of Air, a delicate man, yet active, fierce, and courageous, often the victim of his own short-sightedness or ill-conceived notions. And it also could be attack, Fire of Swords, attack. Queen of Swords. Oh, Lon, what did you let her do? Oh, I shouldn't have done. Okay. Water of Air, an aggressive woman, keenly perceptive, in action, confident, in spirit gracious and just, graceful, perhaps a dancer, sometimes cruel, deceitful, and unreliable. Support comes from seemingly unsuitable sources. Now, I've known a lot of Queen of Swords in my day, and I think my dear friend Thalassa is a Queen of Swords, and the better qualities she definitely exhibits. The Prince of Swords, Heir of Air. Now, how would you picture Heir of Air, huh? What symbol, what metaphor would be Heir of Air? I say bubbles. Bubbles floating in the air is a perfect metaphoric image of the Prince of Swords. And in Crowley's Thoth Tarot, the Prince of Swords has bubbles around his wings. Okay, Prince of Swords. Heir of air and an ambivalent young man, bright yet unfocused, a fanatic, easily attracted to fads, cults, causes, and drugs. Can be overcautious. Okay, let me turn the page. Can be overcautious, indecisive, and unreliable. Is that your birthday? If so, I'm sorry. Success is possible, but only through the aid of an intelligence greater than your own. I guess Constance and I were in a bad mood that day. Princess of Swords, Earth of Air. An aggressive woman with great cleverness in the management of practical affairs and the settlement of controversies. Can be anxiety-ridden and crushed by responsibilities, especially those of family. And the advice is sometimes it's okay to abandon responsibilities. Now we move, finally, we come to an end of our discussion of the Tarot of Ceremonial Magic with the Ace of Discs. Now the Ace of Discs is sometimes the signature card for the creator of a tarot deck. And in this case, that is my personal magical pentacle. That's the pentacle of LMD. We've got Nuit and Hadit around the circumference. And in the 11-sided figure in the center, there's Rahu or Kuit. And then we've got singular Kether, out of which spring the 4 trees of life. And it just so happens that that is sort of a stylized version of the Enochian seal for the Enochian elemental tablet of Earth. Ace of Discs, the root of power, of the powers of Earth. Primordial matter, seed of the material universe. Sun and earth, spirit and flesh united. 2 of Discs. Harmonious change. First manifestation of Earth, perpetual change maintains stability. Three of Discs. Material works. Now, when I first designed this card, I had all of the gears touching, all 3 touching each other. And then it occurred to me that none of them could turn. They would lock each other in place. So I'd have to call it don't works. Okay. Constructive energy, crystallization of forces, job. Concentrated effort rewarded now or in the future. Now, excuse me while I digress for a second. There's one way of looking at the tarot, which is, I believe, a very super accurate way of looking at it, as each of the trump cards is a universe in and of itself. It's like all the trumps represent this singular totality of existence and being, but just looked at from a different angle. Okay, so there's only one big tarot card. Okay, uh, so for each of those 22 trumps, there's all the rest of the cards uh, represent a universe of their own, or aspects of a universe their own. So if you did a reading that drew one trump card and then used the entire lesser arcana as a deck of its own, you could go about a reading in that way. So like there's a 3 of discs that go with the Magician card. There's a 3 of discs that go with the Empress card. The 3 of discs, this material works, this construction idea. If it went with the Emperor, the Emperor's 3 of discs might be the amassing of an army or a corporation or a team of workers or fighters. Okay, but the 3 of discs that go with the Empress could be the construction of an art gallery or a creative company of some kind. With Venus, it could be the construction of a bordello. Do you see what I mean? Each of the tarot trumps has a universe of its own and an entire rest of the tarot deck of its own too. So you can imagine that there aren't 78 cards in the tarot. There are hundreds of thousands of tarot decks and tarot cards in the tarot, okay? And I'm sure somebody out there could actually compute that for me, tell me what the exact number is. Okay, but I digress. The 4 of discs, earthly power. Unaggressive mastery over purely material circumstances. Security within protective walls, law and order. The 5 of discs. Okay, we're worry. Crowley calls it worry, but the technical term is material trouble. Now, just because it's worry doesn't mean that there's anything to worry about, but you worry anyway, so hence the card. Material trouble, worry, anxiety over money, loss of job or source of income. Prolonged inaction produces intense strain. Fundamental instability. Now we come back to 6, right in the middle. Happy 6s. Okay. The 6 of discs. Material success. Investment of labor or resources results in high yields. A settling down, at least temporary success. 7 of discs. Okay. Success unfulfilled. Expected profits turn into loss or even liabilities. 8 of discs. Not so bad. Prudence, Sol and Virgo. This is today's card. Eight of discs. Prudence. Saving for a rainy day. Plant your garden and wait. Retiring as a positive maneuver. Nine of discs. We come back to the middle pillar. Material gain. Venus and Virgo. Considerable increase of fortune. Reap what you've sown and relax. Popularity, good luck, and good management. could also mean this is the card of inheritance. And 10 of discs. In one way of looking at things, it's the most magical card of all. And its counterpart in the court card family is the Princess of Discs. It doesn't get any lower than that. See the Kether or the Malkuth in this Tree of Life is all swollen up. It's like the Tree of Life has constipation. It's building up. There's no place for it to go. The only place that it can go is the Ace of Wands at the very top. And this is the card that has to perform that universal magical act of consciousness regeneration. Wealth. Material prosperity, recycle wealth by acquisitions and philanthropy. If properly applied, true wisdom and perfect happiness. And I spent a lot of time talking about the 10 of discs and the Princess of Discs in my book on the Thoth Tarot, because that's truly where the divine magic has to happen to sustain existence and being as we know it. Knight of Discs, Fire of Earth. A sturdy man with good instincts. A breadwinner, perhaps. Perhaps a farmer. Unintellectual, laborious, preoccupied with material things, can be short-sighted, stupid, and superstitious. But they all can. Use your instincts. Success results from imitating nature. And this is today's card, too. See? The Queen of Discs. Water of Earth. A quiet, practical woman, affectionate, domesticated, and kind, often shyly lustful. May attempt to seek relief from drudgery by alcohol or drugs. Quietly move forward, no need to battle circumstances. I love the Queen of Discs. The Prince of Discs. Heir of Earth. An energetic and competent man, steadfast, trustworthy, ingenious, both the jack and the master of all trades. Almost emotionless, he may appear insensitive. Gradual liberation from repressive conditions. This guy's the ultimate handyman, okay? This is the guy you want as your plumber, your gardener, your fixer-upper guy. This guy could get your home. We need one of these right now here in Sacramento. Finally, the magical lady herself, the Princess of Discs, Earth of Earth. A strong and beautiful woman, perhaps a mother, ideal projection of womanhood, so all-encompassing in her attributes, she may appear confusingly inconsistent. She rests and awaits the future. She's the threshold of transformation. And so we end the little white book that comes with the Tarot of Ceremonial Magic, and we've had a very brief look at every one of the 78 cards in the deck, and I hope you found this this little series fun. And tomorrow we'll start something else with Crowley's Liber Ararita. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself. Please, I got to tell myself that over and over again, too. Be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under well.